Hi, welcome to this session. My name is Mary Binoy and I'm one of the language trainers at Envertis Academy. So today we'll be doing a couple of writing tasks of one. So as you had already attended the previous session, you know that we have already covered some of the lines and the graphs. So today we'll be going to do the processes and maps. So before we start, let's wait for the others to join us. Yes, I can see some of them joining in. Okay. Okay, I think we'll start off. As you know, we have two tasks in writing for IELTS, writing task 1 and writing task 2. Writing task 1 basically contains graphs, charts, maps, and processes. Now we have only the last two left, that's processes and maps. We have just 20 minutes to complete this particular task because out of the 1 hour that's given to us for writing, we use the 40 minutes for the essay, that's the writing task 2, and 20 minutes for the writing task 1. So today we'll be going into the details about how to write a process or a diagram and how to write a map. So let's start on. Yes, I think quite a number of you have joined. Yes, good evening to all of you. So let's start with the process. Remember that you need to describe the process in roughly 150 to 170 words. So firstly, understand what the process is all about. Then start with an introduction. Go on to write an overview and then complete it by just describing what it is actually. So let me just tell you a few tips before we start off with a proper process. While looking at the picture, ensure that you know the sequence. When I say sequence, some of our graphs or the processes, I could say, are given in a clockwise direction and some are in the anti-clockwise direction. So understand what is the order. Sometimes it could also be a row-wise arrangement of pictures. When I say row-wise, you might go from the left end to the right end and from there go to the next line. So as you can see on the screen, we have shown you what it is. So these are the few types that you can get in a process. So once you have understood what is the order, then what you do is start with an introduction. So you're going to write an introduction. While writing an introduction, you could take the help of the sentence that's given on the top of the graph and you could paraphrase it using synonyms. Next, what you do is write an overview about the graph or the process, to be very specific. And once you have written the overview, write in detail using the words given in the picture, which means each of the pictures will have some information along with it. I will be showing you these. Yes. Once you have seen these pictures, you see that the pictures are, after the pictures, you can see arrows or you can see that they are numbered. So you can see that it proceeds from 1 to 9 here. And yes, we have till 9. And then the last picture is the 10th one. So what you do is you can, go in that order. You see what the order is and then write. Some of these pictures might look a little confusing. You don't know how to link it. So these words actually will help you. So let me just start with that. Now I want to describe a process and I wanted to take up something interesting. So I've taken chocolate production. I'm sure all of you like chocolate a lot. So it's pretty interesting, I should say. So we have this picture and it's a process, and right in the top of the picture you say it's written, the illustrations show how chocolate is produced. So you have actually a sentence for you to make an introduction. So first you start with the introduction and then go on to your overview and then describe the entire picture. So when you do this, you see that the first picture shows a cacao tree with ripe red pods on it, and below the picture it is written, grown in South America, Africa, Indonesia. Similarly, we have 9 other pictures and you have information beneath these pictures. So, and like I said, these are in horizontal rows. So you need to know the order. So you go 1, 2, 3 on the first line, and then on the next line it starts with 4. So now we know the order and we are going to start writing. So my introduction would be, the picture shows the different processes required to convert the cacao bean into chocolate. So that would be the introduction for this. This is followed by an overview. So the overview says, overall, there are 10 stages in the process of chocolate making, from its procurement to its production. So we have written the overview. Now that we have given a fair idea of the process in the introduction and the overall statement, let us proceed to the body paragraph. So the body paragraph starts with, to begin with, the cacao obtained from the cacao tree grown in the continents of South America and Africa, as well as in Indonesia. Once the pods are ripe and red, they are harvested and the white cocoa beans are extracted. They are then fermented, following which they are spread out on a large tray to dry them under the sun. Next, they are filled into huge sacks and transported to factories either by road or by rail. These beans are roasted at a temperature of 350 degrees Celsius. Then these are crushed to remove the outer shell. Finally, the inner part is pressed and the liquid chocolate is obtained. So we've written the entire process, starting with an introduction, going to an overview, and winding it up with a detailed explanation of what the process actually is. So now let's look at some more ways that we could see the same process. See, it could be in a different order. You could have all of these not in a row-wise manner, but you can have all this in this way also. Sometimes you might get a lot of just written material with arrows in between, what we call as a flow chart. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this term, flow chart. So you might get a flow chart as well. So let me show the picture of a flow chart. Well, this is a picture of a flow chart where you see that it starts right from the picking and it ends at the consumer. So there might be a lot more information, at times a little more information, but the process remains the same. So mind you, you can't learn this by heart because you need to go step by step and you don't know what's given in your picture. So as I said, they contain more or less the same information. Sometimes a few more steps are added. Usually the question of a process could be one of manufacturing done by humans, or it could be a natural process. So these are the two types that you are bound to get. Something that occurs naturally, that's a natural process, and the other one is done by humans. So it could be a man-made process. So the two ones that we have is man-made process and a natural process. However, the way of writing or explaining is the same, be it a man-made process or a natural process. But usually what we see the difference in a natural process is they are cyclic, which means it leads back to the first one. So let me just give you an example of this. Yes, we have the life cycle of a flower. So this illustration, as you can see, begins at the bottom. You can see it's numbered as 1 and you see that it's it's written seeds. So it starts from there and proceeds in a clockwise direction and finally ends at the seeds. So very clear on that. It starts with the seeds and ends with the seeds, and it's a cyclic process. I would like to tell you how to write a literature for this, or how do you explain this. Obviously, you start with the same thing. You start with an introduction, and then you proceed to the overview, and finally the body paragraph. So I would be writing the first or the introduction like this. The illustration shows the different stages of the life cycle of a flowering plant. Okay, so I've done my introduction. Now I go on to my overview statement. Overall, this natural process shows 8 stages, starting from a seed and ending with a fruit bearing plant which generates seeds. So you have, you're saying that it's a cyclic process. It's saying that it comes back to the same first step. Then I go on to my body paragraph. Initially, the seeds are planted in the soil and watered. The seeds germinate and tiny leaves sprout. Almost 7 days later, this grows into a sapling. Later, buds develop, and a few days later, the buds bloom into flowers. These flowers develop into fruits which contain seeds. These seeds can then be used to continue this cycle. See how we have told how it's cyclic by explaining it effectively. So now I have shown you how to write a detailed explanation of 2 types of processes, namely a man-made and a natural process. Now there are variations to these types of processes. The variation that we could have is a combination graph. A combination graph is when you get 2 graphs in one question paper, which means that you have to write a combined introduction, a combined overall statement, and maybe you can write 2 body paragraphs. So sometimes, like I would like to show here, it would probably be say a life cycle of something. Say here I have shown the life cycle of a silkworm, and finally we realize that from the silkworm we get the cocoon from which we get the threads, and these threads are then used to produce or weave clothes. So that process is shown here, and we have 2 processes, which means the first one is a natural process and the second one is a man-made process. So this is what I said is a combination graph. So you could get a man-made and a natural process. Sometimes you could get 2 man-made processes. So you have to look properly at the processes, understand what type it is, and then proceed to write it. Okay, so let me just give you a few tips on how to write a good process. The first is always use passive voice. Now, this simply means that we do not give importance to the subject, rather, the object is given more importance. For example, in the first picture, I had written it as they are then fermented, and I did not write it as the farmer then ferments these seeds. So it's not the farmer that ferments these seeds, it is they are then fermented. So the doer of the particular process is not important. You give more importance to the action that is being done. So as I said, the first point is always use passive voice. The second is carefully look at the sequence of the pictures. Always ensure that you follow the correct order, because as I just mentioned in the beginning, you might have the clockwise, anti-clockwise, or the row-wise, or you could just have pictures in rows, but it's kind of, you feel it's quite haphazard. But as long as you know how the order is, I'm sure you can write a good graph or a good process. The next point is explain the process in a concise manner and include synonyms wherever possible. So it's always better to have synonyms in your graph whenever you think you can write. For example, instead of writing a week, I could write around 7 days, or instead of writing 14 days, I could just paraphrase it as a fortnight. So, this is what I meant. So, it's always better to go with synonyms and see that you explain it in a concise manner. Don't make it too detailed. This is especially important when you have a combination graph, because when you have a combination graph, you would have to describe two processes, and all the more confusing when you have to write a combination introduction and an overview. So see that you know what the order is, make it concise, and remember it's a process and you're only allowed to go up to 170 words. That's a safe number, I should say. Okay, so the next is on maps. So before I go to the next topic, let's take a short break. I'll see you after the break. Hi, welcome back after the break. So, the next task, as I said, is a map. There are certain basics that you have to keep in mind, which are preferable when describing a map. Be thorough with the directions. So, when I say directions, usually you're used to writing right and left. Well, in a map, it's always better to describe the directions as north, south, east, and west. So, what you do is, as soon as you get your map, put a cross on the map on the right hand corner and write the directions so that you don't have a confusion. So, the first one, what you do is the upward direction is north, the diagonally opposite one is south, the one on the right is east, and the one on the west on the left is west. So you might have a confusion between east and west. Just remember the hand with which you eat is your east. So it's east and it's west, upward is north and down is south. So we live down south. So remember that we live, Kerala is down south, so it's south, and the opposite is north. So now you've got your directions right. Now there are four more directions that I would like to tell you. Between the north and the east is northeast. Between south and east is southeast. Between south and west is southwest. And between north and west is northwest. So basically you have four directions and then four more. So you have, you can, when you want to say about the location of a particular feature, you can actually say it very clearly or with great clarity if you know these directions correctly. So once you have marked that, you're quite clear with the directions. One more information that's not very usual, rarely you might get, is a scale. At the bottom of the map, they might give you a scale, and the scale, like it's shown here, it's the a small line with 100 meters maybe marked on it. So what you do is you roughly measure it with your index finger and your thumb, take it back to the map and see how many times you have to place your fingers to complete that entire maybe length or breadth of the map whatsoever. So supposing you have measured it and it's told the scale is 100 meters and you have to keep your fingers maybe three times. So it'll be 3 into 100, which is roughly 300 meters. You can say roughly 300 meters. Say you have to keep your fingers maybe 4.5 times. So 4.5 into 100, which is approximately, you could say 450 meters. So this varies. So this is how you say the area of the map. So these things usually come in handy when you have an island or a peninsula. So I'm sure you have a doubt now, what's an island and what's a peninsula? Is there a difference? Obviously there's a difference. An island is a piece of land surrounded by water on all four sides, whereas a peninsula is surrounded by water on three sides with land on the third. So, just want to give you an example of it. Ideal example is India. We are a peninsula. India is a peninsula, whereas Sri Lanka, our neighbor, is an island. So, say you get a map with an island, and they've given you a scale. It's quite easy to measure it out. You can measure it approximately and say about it. So these are the few things that you have to know before you start on the map. So you've got that. Now I just want to tell you that there can be a range of combination of maps that you can get. The easiest one is a single map, and it would be a single map with showing a basic layout of a small area with clearly marked features, and does not require any comparisons because there's nothing to compare it with. They require a description about the identifiable features and its location in that area. For example, say you have got you're given a map of a small park with few distinct features, like say you have a few slides, or swings and walkway, trees. So for this, I just want to give you a description of how I would do it. So as usual, we start with an introduction, we go to an overview, and finally we have a body paragraph. It would start like this. See the picture I've given here. I've shown you the picture of a small park. Like I've just explained, we can see that there's a slide right in the center, and we can see swings on one side, a pond, and a couple of trees. Now I just can't say it like this, so I need to make it more ordered. So first we start with the introduction. The illustration depicts a public park featuring several recreational and natural elements. Okay, so I hope you understood what this recreational and natural elements are. Recreational is what we have actually added on to that park, like the slide and the swings, whereas the natural elements are the trees and the pond. Okay, now we go to an overall statement. Overall, the park's design shows a well balanced space which is ideal for public use. So, we've given an overall statement. Now, we go on to the body paragraph. As evident, the park has a rectangular shaped pond on the northern side. A few ducks are visible in the pond, enhancing the ambience. Adjacent to the pond is a play area with two types of slides and a pair of swings. There are rows of trees indicating a tree avenue on the northern border of the park. Several benches have been placed in the park. A few conifers can be seen on the northeastern corner of the park. See how I've used the directions very effectively. I've told where each of these are situated. So you can see I mentioned the conifers. Conifers are those pointed trees that we can see on the northeastern corner. So you can see that there are a couple of trees there, and I've described it. So this is how a simple map can be described. Now, say we have two maps, which is the usual. When we have two maps, um, these maps actually are of the same place. One is before any development has taken place, and the second one would be after the development. So when you're describing this, just let me give you a few tips on that. When you describe two maps, you can say it as the former map and the latter map, or you can say the first map and the second map. That's when you write your body paragraph. Now let's look at the introduction for this particular these maps. Actually, the two maps display an island before and after it was developed for tourism. So that's the introduction. We go on to the overall statement. Overall, the island underwent significant transformation by including a lot of facilities for visitors to this place. So that's the overall statement. This is followed by a body paragraph. As evident, The island is approximately 250 meters, had palm trees dotted around it, is surrounded by ocean and has a beach to the west. Over the period, the island has been completely transformed with the addition of a hotel and a pier. However, the eastern part of the island appears to have been left undeveloped. The most noticeable additions are the hotel rooms. Six buildings surrounding some trees have been built on the west of the island, and nine buildings have been constructed in the center of the island. Between the two accommodation areas, a reception building and a restaurant has been developed. A pier has also been built on the south coast of the island, allowing yachts access to the resort. Apart from the trees, the beach remains the only natural feature to be relatively untouched. However, it is now being used for swimming. So you see, I have described everything. Just like I mentioned earlier, we have a scale right at the bottom which says 100 meters. So we had to include it in our written work. So what we did is we measured it out and we realized that the island is approximately 250 meters. Then we have included all the features, including the buildings in the center, the buildings on the right, on the left, and the pier, which has been constructed newly. So we have included this. Then you can see there are yachts. So obviously we have included the yachts. Seeing the pictures, we realize that those are yachts actually. Yeah, so we have included that. And we have told about how they connected. So all this has been included. Plus we have said that the last portion, that the only, we can see that the tip of that island, it was a beach. It is still a beach, but then it has been developed for swimming. So now we have included everything, and this is how a map is to be written. Now there's a difference. Sometimes you might also get three maps which indicate a place in a particular past period. So you have a map of a particular place during, say, you have it in some earlier time, followed by one that may be around another 10 years later, and another one again a decade later. So you have three maps, three different times, but the same place, and how it undergoes a lot of transformation over the period. So let me just show you one of this. Yeah, we have this place known as Fontaine, and you can see that place Fontaine. You can see that this place in 1962, followed by one the same place in 1985, and how it is now. So you start with the place initially, how it is. Just briefly explain what it is. You can see Fontaine. You can see another place how they had a railway line, and then you can see that the in the next map how it's, the next the place there, that's the Meadowside village, how it's expanding. It has expanded over time, and then by the most recent one shows how Meadowside has become a suburb, and it has merged with Fontaine. So you have to write, I would say, two paragraphs more than enough for your body, which means you start with an introduction, go to your overall, and then write a third body paragraph, which you can divide into two. The first paragraph might have two or three lines, just telling, basically what this place is, and then the next paragraph combining both 1985 and now. Okay, so maps might seem a little confusing, but with enough practice and the right guidance, you can easily write a good description in your exam. So the solution that I have to offer you is Inverters Academy. Come to us. We have tutors here for teaching you IELTS both online and offline. We are located very close to the Vadakekota metro station. So do come to us at Inverters Academy. We are here to help you, because as I would like to tell you and remind you, whether be it a process or a map, you need a lot of practice, and you need people to help you out in correcting you how to write it and where you have made mistakes to rectify it and do complete justice. Let me give you some words that you can use while writing maps, especially when talking about buildings. Well, let me just go give you those words as you can see on the screen: demolished, knocked down, flattened, replaced, renovated, built, constructed, reconstructed, developed, extended, expanded, relocated, converted, modernized, changed into, erected, and opened up. So, I've given you quite a few words. You could use it in your maps. Now, let me come to the last portion. Those are my tips for you when you're writing a map. Just like I said in a process, use passive voice. Um, this is because you don't write, they constructed 9 buildings. Rather, we put them as 9 buildings have been constructed. Yeah. And the next point that I would like to tell you is start describing your map from one end and proceed to the other, which means that supposing you start from the east end, go slowly from the east end, cover the east portion, that is the both the northeast and the southeast, come to the center, and then proceed to the other end, that is you're going to the, whether you're going to the west sides or northwest, southwest, complete it. So that way, two good things about this is that one is that you don't miss out any of the features. Secondly, you don't repeat anything. So this is how you write it. Next point is include vocabulary specific to maps and use directions appropriately. So this is why I said whenever you write your directions, write it correctly, appropriately. So initially itself, mark it off, finish with the marking, and then look at the marking and write your map. Next point is use the correct prepositions. You want to write next to something, so it's next to or adjacent to. You want to write it's in the center, so it's in the center. So use in the center. Be objective. Only describe the maps and the changes. Do not give opinions or personal preferences. Don't say that this is better than the other because they've not asked you. Don't write it. Just write what's given in the maps. So I think you've got a fair idea about how to explain a process and a map. All these seem complicated only when you lack practice. So practice and you can write. Try writing this within the 20 minutes that you have been allotted, because remember that you need to attempt your writing task 2, that is your essay first, and then come to your writing task 1. This helps you to complete both the tasks, do complete justice to both, and both these tasks, you see that it's equally important and you have to answer this. So see that you complete both these, and when you are given when you know that you have your 20 minutes to do a task 1, you need to divide it logically. So how do you divide your 20 minutes is first 1 or 2 minutes for understanding what it is and having a clear picture about what you're going to write. Maybe then you can use around 15 to 16 minutes for writing, and last 2 to 3 minutes for proofreading. So I hope I made myself very clear on maps and processes. It might seem a little too much, how to write this, how to go about this, but with practice, I'm sure you'll be able to write beautiful, writing task 1, write it perfectly. You will be able to do complete justice, not just with the content, but with even being contented writing it. So it's not just about the content what you present, it's also the contentment behind it. You've done a good work. Okay, so before we wind, just let me look at the questions that have come. Yes, I can see. Yes, one of you have asked me which type of graph is the toughest. Well, the question itself is tough. I wouldn't know how to answer it because it depends on how you have practiced and what you think is difficult. I know some of you are very good at understanding numbers and converting it into figures like doubled, tripled, or immediately you get it very easily. But some of us are not good at it, so you have to practice that. So some of you are good at writing maps, extremely good. You see a map, you know how to, what to write first, how to go about it. Directions are really good, you can write it. So it depends upon what you feel is difficult. So practice on what's tough. So you know where to come to. We are here to help you out. Yeah, the next question that we got is yes, what's a mark distribution for a graph? Well, it's like this. You have two-third of the marks is two by third is for the writing task two, and one-third is for the graph. So you have two times more the importance for an essay, whereas for the graph it's one-third. That's a mark distribution. Yeah, I can see the next question is um, quite tricky, I should say. Can we get any type of graph? Yes, absolutely. You can never guess what the next graph will be. It could be a combination, it could be a map. One week, you have students telling you, okay, they had a map for the exam. Maybe as you write your computerized, you have exams going on throughout the day. So sometimes a batch might get a map, the next batch might get a line graph or might get a bar graph, say pie chart combination. So you never know what you get. You can never predict. Okay, and the next question is, are combination graphs commonly asked? Well, you never know. You can get combination graphs, and I've always felt whatever you dread, you tend to get those. So don't dread, practice properly, and I'm sure you'll be able to do complete justice, write good graphs. I wish you all the best, and I hope you do come and join us. So I hope the session was helpful. Please let us know your feedbacks, your suggestions, and whatever you want to tell. Please send us all that. Please comment on it. So hope to see you for other sessions. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye.